begin by honoring our veterans from recognizing Veterans Day was last Friday, and I'd like to call upon Board Member Jim Sorum to step to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is with great pride that we honor our veterans, including me, and those who currently serve in the military, including my son-in-law. And we thank you for all of your services. To highlight a few things that have taken place in our schools over the years, here are just a few examples. In some of our elementary schools, students gathered information about family and friends who are veterans and displayed that information in the hallways. In the middle schools, one of our counselors at Olson Middle School is in the Army National Guard and has served overseas. He has worked with students that have family members that are serving or have served in our military. One of our middle school teachers' father, a Vietnam and Desert Storm veteran, has come to speak to the 8th grade social studies classes. Some of the social studies 6th, 7th graders worked with the VFW every year for the Patriots Pen Essay Contest. They go to a pizza party and dinner led by the VFW every December and January related to the event and hear various speakers there. And in our high schools from time to time, veterans come to speak to the social studies classes also. Some of our students participate in the VFW Voice of Democracy Essay Contest. And last year at Hillcrest Community School, a father of one of the students who was serving in the Army presented the school with a flag inside of a plaque that read, "Soldiers of the 2nd 147th Helicopter Battalion, U.S. Army, flew this flag in tribute of Hillcrest over their headquarters at Camp Buring in Kuwait on April 2nd, 2015. We have participated in many, we've had our Kennedy students participate in singing the national anthem at the Human Services Veterans Appreciation Lunch this year, and we also have had our Army National Guard participate in flag raising ceremonies at every school on Veterans Day, the 11th. And tonight we have some guests who would like to say a few words. So at this time, I'd like to invite Melissa Rabel and some of the Kennedy students to join us. We want to thank the American Legion for all the support they have given to the Kennedy community.
Thanks, Jim. Good evening. I'm Melissa Rebel, and I am the Kennedy Community Alliance Chair at Kennedy High School, and I am very grateful to the American Legion and the VFW for funds that they've donated for various groups, sports teams, extracurriculars, and our students who are struggling with poverty or living in a homeless style. And I brought with me tonight some of our brightest and best Eagles to extend their sincere appreciation. I have with me Honor Finley, who is our reigning homecoming queen, and also participates in tennis, basketball, and track, state champion at that, and just signed her letter of intent for KU. We have Eric Cruz Lopez, he's one of our wrestlers who has gone to state. We have Percy Willingham, who is another great athlete for us. He participates in football, track, and wrestling, little out of sync there. And then we have Rachel Showers, who is an Ignite mentor she's a senior for our younger students, and also the president of National Honor Society. So I'll invite all four. I thought this was a good representation of our school. All four to briefly thank the American Legion and the VFW.
Thank you.
Oh, you can say more.
Well, I'd like to thank both groups for supporting us and fighting the war for us. Thank you so much, and keep fighting.
I'd also like to thank both groups for your service, so thank you for fighting for our country. It means a lot.
Thank you for serving us, and thank you for supporting the Bloomington community.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, students. continue your good work wherever you go, and don't get hurt. Now, and also tonight, representing the veterans, we're pleased to have the commanders from our two Bloomington-based veterans organizations. So please join me in welcoming Commander Doug Dorfler from the Everett McClave VFW Post 1296 and Commander David Wallerick from the Earl C. American Legion Post 550.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for inviting us here tonight. Our organizations are really based to support the community. The VFW has the Patriots Pen and VOD. We feel it's very important to try and instill patriotism in our students at an early age. And through these two programs, we can do that. The winners of the programs at the city level go to the state level, and from the state level, they can go to the national level. So it is quite a big program for us. So thanks again. I appreciate you having us here, and we'll continue to support the community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Wallach, Commander of Post 550 Earl C. Hill. I've been with this post for 16 years, and I just got elected commander this past June. I also attended a Legion convention in Rochester, and I didn't believe it, but we've got over 80,000 veterans in the state of Minnesota alone, and 528 posts in the whole state. I didn't know that, but I do now, and I'm really proud of that. My brother Frank was in the Navy for 17 years. He passed away in May. He was a Vietnam veteran. He also served in I can't think of the country right now. Anyways, my dad was in the Army. He served under Patton in World War II. He fought for 4 years, and he was in Africa, and he got wounded by a piece of shrapnel. He passed away back in 2003. So being a commander and losing two brothers has kind of hit me like a wrecking ball. But you know what? I've been dreaming about being a commander of a post for many, many years, and it's finally came through, and I'm really proud to be the commander of this post in the city. And our Legion has donated a lot of money to the Bloomington students to help them out with whatever they need. And we help the veterans about 100 to 200%. We've bought in vans for the Veterans Hospital in South Minneapolis, and we bought other things for them so the veterans can get from their vehicles to the hospital a lot easier without having an accident or falling down. So we're real proud of that. I want to thank all of you for having me here tonight, and I'm a little nervous because I've never done this before, but I'm very proud to be here, and I thank you all for what you've done and what we've done. We'll continue to serve the city of Bloomington, and you can bet I will definitely help our veterans in the future and whatever it is possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for
You
your
said it
service.
pretty well, and as a member of the Richfield Legion Club for over 40 years, I can appreciate all the work that's been done for so many veterans and so many families, and we just want to keep it going. I've been asked many times to transfer my membership over to Bloomington, and now that these two guys are here, I guess I'm going to have to. So thank you.
The Bloomington School District is fortunate to have businesses and organizations that support our Lunars and the community of Bloomington. In appreciation of these collaborative efforts, the school board recognizes our Friends of Education. I'd like to invite the principal of Poplar Bridge Elementary School, Robert Cantu, to introduce our friend for this evening, the Minnesota Valley Wildlife Refuge.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Fujitaki, and members of the board, thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. It's with my great honor that I introduce Mr. Tim Bodine and Suzanne Trapp up here from the Minnesota Valley Wildlife Refuge. We've been fortunate to partner with the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge for the last year. We have 3 field trips that we provide to our 4th and 5th grade students. And so this extends our outdoor learning capabilities for our students at Poplar Bridge. And one of the highlights, I think one of my highlights too, from the refuge partnership was last spring we had a fishing day, and all of our 5th graders participated in a fishing day at the refuge. And the highlight was all the kids received a fishing pole for doing so, and many of our kids had not fished or owned a fishing pole, and so that was a wonderful experience for all our kids to participate in. So thank you, Tim and Suzanne, for your partnership.
Thank you. We love your kids. Sure, I'll say something. I just want to let you know that we've worked with many, many schools over the years, and this partnership with Poplar Bridge has been a highlight for us. Not only are your students very enthusiastic, you have an amazing group of teachers at that school and principal that really support environmental education and outdoor learning, and we hope to be working together for many, many years to come. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Bodine, and I am the refuge manager for Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge. I've been here for about 3 years. I've been with about 33 years with the Fish and Wildlife Service all across the country, all the way out to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, working on different projects. Towards the end of my career, I wanted to come back to the Midwest because I'm actually from Wisconsin. But I had a great chance to manage this beautiful refuge that stretches for 70 miles from right here at the 494 bridge all the way up the Minnesota River to a little town called Henderson. So we have 2 visitor centers. We work with a multitude of school districts, and it's been fabulous. I've got great staff like Suzanne who make these kind of things go, and we are so excited to work with the city of Bloomington and the school districts in Bloomington. We're also launching our urban wildlife refuge program. We've been one of the 14 refuges selected in the country that's set in an urban setting to roll out this program. So we're starting to do a lot more work with all our neighborhoods from all over East Bloomington as well as West Bloomington, and engaging those new audiences on the refuge and giving them an opportunity to come out and work with us on the ground and then back in their home areas. So thank you for all your support.
Thank you. And your logo will be placed back on our Friends wall if it's not there already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings us to the American Education Week proclamation. Would someone like to move that resolution?
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the attached proclamation proclaiming November 14th to the 18th, 2016 as American Education Week in the Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas throughout American history, schools have helped democratize our nation, strengthen our communities, and widen opportunities for all people. And whereas by integrating different groups through commonly shared values, schools prepare this nation's diverse population to live harmoniously in a democratic society. And whereas for generations, our schools have answered the call to develop and challenge the future leaders of our families, our communities, and our nation. And whereas there is no greater legacy than the sound education of our children and the continuing education of our adults, now therefore, we members of the Bloomington School Board proclaim that November 14th through the 18th, 2016, be observed as the 95th anniversary of American Education Week. All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No. And I would like to invite, but you're already there, our Assistant Superintendent Eric Melby to the podium. Say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Bartolotta, members of the school board, and Superintendent Fujitaki. I'm honored to actually get to stand here and accept this proclamation, or say thank you for the proclamation. When you look at American education and Education Week over 95 years, there's lots of work that's gone into that. Just this last week, President Obama signed a proclamation about American Education Week and called out a number of folks who make education happen, obviously parents and students, substitute teachers, and really everybody that contributes, cooks, bus drivers. If I start custodians, if I start listing too long a list, I'm sure to forget somebody. But it's an amazing group of people that make that happen. And most, well, I will say most importantly on that list of American Education Week is the actual teachers teaching the kids in the classrooms. And I just want to thank the teachers in Bloomington. I know they've been working extremely hard this fall in particular. Putting forth great effort, and it should not go unnoticed. So I just want to publicly state that and thank teachers in Bloomington for the work they've done, and everybody who contributes to the education of our students as we celebrate National Education Week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a resolution regarding Chemical Health Week. Would someone like to move that resolution?
I can. Madam Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 proclaims the week of November 14th to November 18th, 2016 as Chemical Health Week in Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
Thank you. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas alcohol and other drug abuse in the United States severely affects individuals, families, schools, and communities, and whereas the color red has been chosen to represent individual and community commitment efforts to reduce alcohol and other drug abuse in our community, and whereas business, government, law enforcement, schools, religious institutions, service organizations, neighborhoods, youth, senior citizens, and other individuals are encouraged to demonstrate their commitment to help reduce and prevent alcohol and other drug abuse by wearing and/or displaying the color red during Chemical Health Week, wearing and/or displaying a red ribbon. Now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Bloomington Public Schools does hereby declare November 14th through the 18th, 2016, Chemical Health Week in Bloomington Public Schools, and encourages its students, staff, and families to participate in drug prevention education, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free community. Be it further resolved that the school board encourages all students, staff, and parents to support alcohol and other drug abuse prevention efforts year-round. All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I would like to thank Andy Kubas for coming to the podium to receive the proclamation. He's the Executive Director of Learning Supports. Yeah, I want somebody to
Madam
do it.
Chair,
Oh,
school board members,
Take it up.
Superintendent Fujitaki, viewing public, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be here to do that. Chemical Health Week is a very, very important week. I'll echo what Assistant Superintendent Melby said, that the teachers on the ground, the social workers, the psychologists, the counselors who really get involved in this work are key to this. But let's not forget, we celebrate it for the week, but it's Chemical Health Week every week. It's a really, really important thing that we make sure that this is always in the forefront as we help students be successful. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call upon the superintendent to introduce a few honorees that are in the audience today, or at the table.
Stand here, please. Good evening. Organizations do not typically recognize their legal counsel. But in this case, recognizing David Holman is very fitting because his parents, Kingsley and Elaine Holman, through the Holman Law Office, collectively have served the district for over 80 years, and they continue to do so. David, joining the family business 40 years ago, has served our district providing outstanding service. So the Holman Law Office together has served our district for over 120 years, providing quality service. So how about a round of applause for that? Sometimes organizations recognize their attorneys if they win a major financial legal case. If that's the criteria, then David's worthy of this recognition because over the years, his opinions and his prowess in the courtroom has saved our district millions of dollars. I think it's fitting that we appreciate David's service because he epitomizes our core values, and our core values are up there on the kiosk. The first is respect. David often has to deliver tough messages and opinions to the board and to me, but he always does that respectfully. As far as responsibility, 40 years of service, outstanding service to our school community. Speaks for itself. Integrity, David always delivers. You can ask anyone in the school district. If you call him up, he'll return the phone call that day. For citizenship, what better way to help improve the community than by helping your schools? And he's done that for the past 40 years. As far as honesty, some people quip that an honest attorney is an oxymoron. But in the Holman Law Office's case, I trust them and have total confidence in them because they love the district and the school community as much as all of us do. As far as teamwork, David sits at the table with the school board and with me, and over the years I've seen him work hard to help us be successful. So therefore, David, on behalf of the school community and school board, thank you for your 40 years of outstanding service. But before I ask David to say a few words, I have another recognition I'd like to do, and that's for his parents, Kingsley and Elaine Holman. Elaine could not make it tonight, but Kingsley's here, and Kingsley is a World War II veteran, so he deserves recognition for that service. And I have 2 awards for you, Kingsley, recognitions for you and Elaine, but for many reasons, without you and Elaine, tonight's recognition could not be possible.
Well, thank you very much. It sure doesn't seem like 40 years, and although I wish I had managed to figure out some way to turn that into billable hours. Worked for the school district for a long time with a lot of great people, a lot of board members who feel they're doing their civic duty because they sure aren't doing it for the acclamation and the love that comes with this job. I've worked with a lot of staff members, teachers, all who are dedicated professionals who work hard to do the right thing every day. Superintendents, I've worked with a lot of superintendents. They all try hard, and they all do a good job. As Les mentioned, I wouldn't be here without my parents. My dad hired me right out of law school. I'm sure he's regretted it every day since, but Mom won't let him fire me. I imagine at some point I'll be reaching the rule of 90 like my dad did, which means he can retire if he wants to, but that's about it. And so I'm looking forward to working with the board for a long time, and I hope that you enjoy working with me as well. Thank you.
Break so we can go over and shake their hands.
Is that what we're doing?
Thank you, David. Thank you for your indulgence in that. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the school board on an item that's not on the agenda? Now would be the time to step forward. Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on. A requirement of our 12th grade government classes is to observe a governmental meeting of some sort. Things that you may attend are city council meetings, school board meetings, and courtroom proceedings. The social studies curriculum guide identifies essential standards, one of which is to understand the role and influence of political processes and organizations by examining the role of interest groups, think tanks, the media, and public opinion on the political process and public policy formation. I'd like to recognize the students in the audience, have them come forward, give your name and who your teacher is. We know you all go to Jefferson. Step forward. Thank you. At the close of this session, or after 1 hour, whichever is shorter, if any of you didn't get your agenda signed, someone along the wall will be happy to do that for you.
I'm Jack Healy, and my teacher is Mr. Carlson.
I'm Garrett Jacobson, and my teacher's name is Storlene.
I'm Ben Thompson, and my teacher's name is Tim Carlson.
I'm Andrew Bianchini, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
Hi, I'm Olivia Hall, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
I'm Jack Spear, my teacher is Mr. Carlson.
Hi, I'm Hannah Fuchs, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
I'm Dallas Stone, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
I'm Sarah Enger, and my teacher is Mr. Carlson.
I'm Katie Frias, and my teacher is Miss Abby.
I'm Brett Thielen, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
Hello, I'm John Parsons. My teacher is Mr. Storlene.
I'm Emily Stewart, and my teacher is Miss Abby.
I'm Mia, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene. Hi, I'm Genevieve Lund, and I'm in Mr. Storlene's class.
Hi, I'm Delaney Lucken, and I have Mr. Storlene.
I'm Katie Orcutt, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Allison Plum, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Max Macheski, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
I'm Anusha Raymondthorn, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Nicole Newrock, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Alex Bedo, and I have Storlene.
I'm Kara Seiler, and I'm Mr. Storlene.
I'm Simone Maxwell, and I got Mr. Storlene.
I'm Colton Longley, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Jelaine Clark, and I have Miss Abby.
I'm Gabriela Llerena, and my teacher is Mr. Storlene.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. And we'll see how we can do it here tonight. Get it done. All right, that brings us to the Part A of the agenda. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Our Part A includes all of our board business, minutes, personnel items, committee memberships, field trips, and agreements and contracts. All in favor of Part A as it was amended earlier, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Thank you. Takes us right to Part B. And we're going to start with our fees. First one up, student parking fees.
Madam
Better
Chair.
watch out, we have a room full.
Yeah, no, a room full of students.
Please.
Be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 establishes student parking fees for Kennedy High School and Jefferson High School at $270 per year, $90 per trimester for the 2017-2018 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Our Assistant Superintendent, Eric Melby, is here to talk about that.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Fujitaki, as was just noted, the recommendation for parking fees, $90 trimester or $270 for the year, is the same as the current rate for students. So with all these students in the back, we're not recommending raising parking rates at this time. Although we are dealing with some financial challenges, obviously, in the district, administration's recommending that we keep that fee steady for the next year. Students pay this fee. Demand kind of ebbs and flows. And if price increases, we probably get less people that are able to or willing to park there, so doesn't really help us out financially. And we've got a lot of students coming and going for PSEO and other classes. work options, and we want to make it reasonable for them to continue along that pathway. So for that reason, administration's recommending no increase to the fees for next year.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Please.
Yes, it says the fees remain unchanged since the 2015-16 school year. Did we raise them last year? I thought they were the same last year as well.
I think they were the same last year, too. It's been a few years since we've raised.
In a few years, okay.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, are our parking lots at capacity, or is there still room? Is that part of the reason why we're not raising them?
Yeah, we could have more students buying passes if they wanted to.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I was just going to throw out there, I know some people have said, well, you know, the kids, they could just take the bus or the activity bus, but a lot of the, just throwing this out there, a lot of the activities actually end after the activity buses have already left. And so I think it's important to be able to give access, especially to the kids that need it. Because I know playing sports in high school, sometimes you don't get back to the school until 6:30 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And so it's good to be able to have this for as many as possible.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, we have a resolution regarding student instrument user fees. Thank you.
Madam Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 establishes student instrument user fees for the 2017-18 school year.
Second. Thank you. Director Melby?
Again, this will be a bit of a constant theme on these fee resolutions tonight, but the administration's recommending that the current user fees for this school year remain the same moving forward into next school year. You know, we get concerned that if we raise fees too much or too often, that'll prohibit students from taking part in the program. And that potential loss of revenue would likely offset any increased revenue we would get if we raised fees. It seems to be a reasonable amount of money at this point, and we would recommend keeping the fees the same. I think folks on the board and in the audience and watching on TV would agree that taking part in these programs with musical instruments is very important for students, and it creates opportunities for them. And we want to maintain the availability of that programming for those students. Therefore, no recommendation for a fee increase for next year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Director Lieber.
In the background, it does say no changes are recommended to the existing fees, but I noticed that the fees are actually dropped for 2016, 17, 17, 18 for elementary band. So that's correct, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at the background here, yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm understanding.
Any other
Yep,
questions?
from last year, yep,
Okay.
correct.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the student instrument user fee resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Student athletic fees. Would someone like to move that resolution?
Madam Chair,
Please.
be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the student athletic fees for the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
Thank you.
Again, after consulting with activities directors and administrators, no recommended increases to student athletic fees this year. We feel like we can make adjustments on the cost side versus the revenue side to maintain our programs and still keep the cost reasonable so that we maximize student participation in those programs. And as I said before, and it really relates to a lot of these fees, if we increase fees, we risk losing students or providing opportunities for students if they can't afford that. Now, we have ways to supplement that, obviously, but after consultation, the recommendation is to keep the fees the same for next year.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Bennett.
Yeah, I'm looking at the student athletic fee page that's attached to this, and it has the, at the top, boys hockey, but I don't see anywhere where it says girls hockey. Am I missing that, or should that just be hockey since it's the same for both, or are they different fees?
We can get an amended one. It should be in there. I don't know why we missed that. I apologize.
Okay, so it would just be changed to just
It would maintain the
hockey?
same fee structure as last year, yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Student non-athletic activity fees for 2017-18. Would someone like to move that resolution?
No.
Please.
Madam Chair. Resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 establishes student non-athletic activity fees for the 2017-18 school year.
Second?
Thank you.
Again, sorry if I sound like a broken record, but no recommendation for fee increases for really the same reasons that were just noted for previous resolutions. Participation rates and our ability to offset costs versus trying to increase revenue to maintain the program.
Any questions or comments? Please.
I just wanted to note that because I get this question a lot on the bottom of where we're looking at the fees, it notes that there are, the non-athletic activities excludes activities that are service-oriented or are part of the curriculum. So there's a lot of things that fall under that there is not a fee for. So I just want to make sure that people know that. Includes things like student newspaper, student console, Jefferson Connection, Rhythm and Gold, etc.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick one, Eric. We do have scholarships or some money available for those that might not be able to come up with this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor of the resolution on student non-athletic activity fees, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, one more. Student adult admission fees for activities, 2017, 2018.
Madam Chair.
Please.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves student adult admission fees for activities for the 2017-18 school year.
Second?
Thank you.
Again, the recommendation is to keep the fees consistent from this year into next year. We're making, administration makes this recommendation. The fees appear to be reasonable and in line with what other districts charge for these kind of activities, and so we recommend keeping the fees the same.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none? Oh, did you have one?
No.
No.
I just reach in to
Okay.
scroll.
Just want to make sure. All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No. All right, next, we will let our assistant superintendent stay at the podium there. And next item is the teacher-led model.
Yes,
Or
I'm going to invite
teacher
some
lead.
friends up with me. I've got with me here Rachel Jens, Lead Curriculum Instruction Specialist, Elementary, Dr. Jenna Mitchell, Lead Curriculum Instruction Specialist, Secondary, and Kelly Spees, our QComp and Teacher Mentor Program Coordinator. So I'm going to be brief. Last year, we took the opportunity to retool our teaching and learning area, and in particular our curriculum instruction area, but really many areas of the office where I work. Come and visit sometime. We've done some remodeling and have created some great space for our teacher teams to work in. So when we did that, we really moved in a more teacher-led direction. So we've got teachers on special assignment. When you hear public and viewing public and those in the audience, when you hear TOSA, that's what TOSA stands for, Teacher on Special Assignment. So teachers who are really leading us through a lot of change in our district as we look at how we do curriculum and instruction. Obviously, our QComp program is a great program, and our Teacher Mentor program is a great program. So when we went forth to make these changes, we really looked to where have we been successful in implementing a teacher-led approach, and QComp was a really strong example of that, and Kelly Spees and her leadership with that program. Through our changes now, Kelly's also leading our Teacher Mentor program. So really want to just take a couple minutes from each person up here tonight to give the board and the public an update of things we're doing with our teachers, for our teachers, and call out some of the great teacher leaders we have in the district. So I'll pass it down to the far end of the table and maybe ask Kelly to start.
Okay. About a month ago, I got a phone call from a university teacher. I don't know if I can call her a professor, but I think pretty close. And she wanted to talk to me about our teacher-led model. And, I was like, well, how did you find out and what's going on? But it was a really nice opportunity for me to be able to share the planning that's gone into this over the past 2 years, really, and what our goals are as a district in meeting the needs of our teachers so they can best meet the needs of our students. And one of the things that she said after we talked for about an hour was, this is an innovation. There's not anything like this that we said, oh, we want to do it this way. We created this ourselves here in Bloomington. And, Bloomington always creates the best, right? We know that with our students that are reflected here in the audience. And we know that in our wonderful teachers and administration here. So that being said, I started to think about, what is an innovation and what does that mean? And for us here in this teacher-led model, it means that we've taken away a layer of administration in terms of support for teachers. So in our former model, the teachers would approach an administrator, the administrator would go to the TOSA, and then the TOSA would serve the teacher. And now the TOSAs are serving the teachers directly. And that just allows for more clarity and communication, and also a connection that we have as being teachers ourselves and recently out of the classroom. So it's been exciting this year to embark on this and to work so closely with Rachel and Jenna in curriculum and instruction, as well as the other departments here at ESC. Some of the hallmarks of the teacher evaluation and how we serve teachers here in Bloomington now, connecting the district instructional mentor program to our QComp coaching program allows teachers to be served from the day they start here in Bloomington throughout the tenure of their career. We are working so much more closely with Susan Bianchi. She's a new secondary mentor this year. Chris Rieno, our special education mentor, and Tia Schmidt, our elementary mentor, to make sure that teachers in their first, second year not only get the support of the mentor, but they get the support of the QComp coaches. We also do a lot of training together. We're working very closely with the OEE team here in the district to provide training to make sure that we're assuring all students get the kind of education that they need. So I'll turn it over now to Jenna. Let her talk about it.
Great, thank you. And it has been really exciting to be a part of this new and innovative approach, I think, to leadership in a school district. Kelly did a really great job explaining some of the changes around what we now call this teacher-led model here in Bloomington. Kelly mentioned the district instructional team, and that's one group that Rachel and I work really closely with. And that team is made up of leaders from each building in our district. One person, one teacher, is an instructional leader from each building, and they come together. And it's a great place for us to provide them with some information about things that are happening here at the district office, to get some feedback, and then to also bounce ideas off of them, hear from them what they would like in terms of support in the buildings and in their classrooms. And some of the things that we've been able to address through this process have been questions or concerns around the curriculum review process. You all know and are familiar now that we are working with math, social studies, and world language at the secondary level this year. And then this group also takes up questions and concerns about PD, planning professional development for teachers during our professional development days. And then things that surface on their own, things like intervention. What are we doing to help students with specialized needs? So these are some of the things that we talk about in these district instructional team meetings. And it's really a great way to hear teacher voice and get teacher voice into the spaces and the committees and the groups that are meeting here at the district office.
I would highlight some of the things our department is specifically supporting at the elementary level for you. As you know, last year we were charged with developing units of study for English language arts. That was a really successful implementation. Our teams, which consisted of cross-site representatives, worked throughout the spring and summer to develop these units. And those representatives from each school in Bloomington are continuing to meet this year to plan professional development experiences for their colleagues and provide implementation support. That model also served as kind of the model for how we want to do curriculum review work going forward. And so at the elementary level, we're continuing to do that work with Kelsey Nash leading our math review this year, and then I'm facilitating social studies review at the elementary level this year too. I would also highlight at the elementary level, the district instruction team working together to solve those issues around curriculum and instruction. One of the big projects that group has taken on this year is the development of a standards aligned report card. So we're really excited to look for changes in that area.
Thank you.
So I might just close it out by, again, like I said in my earlier stint at that podium, if I start mentioning people and names, somebody's going to get left out. But I know that we would love to come back to the board and public and give updates on kind of our work as the year progresses. Not only these guys up here and some of the folks they mentioned, but as we continue to fine tune our personalized growth plans for students, Cheryl Martin, who was teaching at Kennedy not long ago, is leading that effort and doing a great job. And when these guys talked about the district instructional team, the learning supports has a learning supports team that meets monthly as well, and really that's an avenue for us. Although we're highlighting all the great work we're doing, and there is a lot of great work happening, there are also issues that come up at buildings, and so that's a great opportunity for teacher leaders to express what those issues might be, and for us to be able to problem solve around those issues, maybe solve it right at the meeting or form a work group and get some work done quickly to address issues as they come up. So great avenues to get teacher voice into decision making that we're doing, and I really am loving working with these guys. They're all great, so thank you.
Can take some questions? Director Sorms, ready?
The concept of TOSA, the fact that teachers are in the classrooms and then have these opportunities to get into the teacher-led model or a significant step up or special assignment. And that's for a period of time, 1-2 years, or however a contract might be written. And then the opportunity to go back into the classroom again is afforded so someone else can have an opportunity. So that TOSA program is working out pretty well to give classroom teachers an opportunity to lead and to be in a slightly different thing as well as go back.
Yes, to answer your question, and we've always had, TOSAs aren't new in the district, how we're implementing and working with our program in particular, or these programs in particular is new. But yeah, that's always been the goal of Teacher on Special Assignment, is to create opportunities for leadership and doing some things outside of the classroom, eventually taking that expertise and knowledge back to the building and continuing there. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just add too that we do have one TOSA in our on our team for curriculum and instruction, Marcy Koval, who's doing work with math and social studies, and she was a TOSA several years ago working in curriculum and instruction, teaching and learning, and then she went back to the classroom for several years, and now she's back again. So she's kind of gone through that process a couple of times, and we're really benefiting from her knowledge of being back in the classroom and then having had been in this department previously.
Great. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
Just a quick comment. Just want to take the opportunity to say thank you for coming. Thanks for the energy and the effort that you put into this. Appreciate the hard work. I know anytime anything changes, sometimes there's how is this going to work? How's that going to work? And it's nice to see the energy that you put into it. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. Director Steiger.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to add to what Director Bergson said. Just thank you for having the courage to step up and say, yes, I want to be a leader, but also I want to try this new and innovative thing that hasn't been done anywhere else. It's just amazing when you think about it that now someone has heard about it and is calling Kelly to say, how are you guys doing this and what does this look like? And perhaps as we continue down this, we will see other schools starting to want to model it if it turns out to be the great success we think it will be. And, I just think it's wonderful that teachers are the experts on this and that you guys, from you all the way down to a leader in each building, are all listening and giving the teachers the voice and being the experts on education. So I just applaud you for being willing, because I know it was hard work when you started and you didn't have anything else to model after. So I just want to applaud you for your great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, thank you for the wonderful job that you do. Just a couple of things. You mentioned that there are teachers like Marcy Koval that have been able to go back. So that means that a teacher that has been there before then is definitely able to apply again and then go back. So there's no limit on how many times you do it or how often you do it?
I can speak to that. We have 21 TOSA positions that have some sort of term limit to it. And the way it's structured here in Bloomington, that a teacher is guaranteed their position back in that building for 2 years. So we do have people that take these TOSA positions, and after 2 years, they want to go back to the building that they came from. The other people, they'll get a 3 to 5 year term after that. And that's just kind of based on when they're ready to go back or the end of their term. So for the curriculum department, they're kind of restarting that. So the TOSAs that are working, Marcy Koval, Jane Lascarbo, and Kelsey Nash, they're starting at year 1. But in my program, we've already had, a lot of turnover and new people added to our team because of those term limits. So I typically have at least 3 to 4 openings each year for new people to come in and have that opportunity to step out of their classroom for a little while and give back in another way.
Okay. Now, another couple of questions is, one, how often do the teachers get to have a one-on-one deep conversation with the leaders? And the other one is, what are some of the challenges that you have found in every year through the process?
So I can address your first question a little bit. We use in a lot of capacities the representative types of models, and so the district instruction team is meeting monthly, and so those groups come together, and Jenna and I facilitate those groups. Kelly, Jenna, and I have a weekly meeting with Assistant Superintendent Melby to talk about the things that are arising during those meetings and then ongoing concerns as well. So we have very open communication with our administrator.
Yeah, and if I could address your question around challenges, I think that one of the challenges we've faced in building up to what we have now is that teachers have been sort of questioning what sort of advice, what sort of feedback can we give at these district instructional team meetings. And so we've been working really hard to make sure everyone feels very comfortable at those meetings and feels welcome to give their feedback and advice and knows that it's going to be taken up and brought back here and heard.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone? Go ahead.
I just need to add one more thing. I just wanted to also mention how receptive you were when I asked if I could attend any of your meetings to see more in depth what you're doing. And within, I don't know, the next day or within a few hours, I got an email with all of the dates so that I could work my schedule around when I could attend their meetings. So that's how on top of it they are and how open they are to having someone else sit in and learn what they're doing also. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you all for your attendance tonight. Thank you. Your information.
Thanks.
Next, we have a resolution regarding the World's Best Workforce Annual Report. Would someone like to move that resolution?
Madam Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 accepts the World's Best Workforce Annual Report for the 2015-2016 school year.
Second.
Thank you. Our Executive Director of Community Relations, Rick Kaufman, is here to talk about this.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Fujitaki, members of the school board, we come to you this evening with the final draft of the annual report, which will be inserted in the next issue of School Pages that will be printed following approval by the school board of the annual report. It is a 4-page insert on top of the 4 pages of the School Pages document that gets sent to every household in the district. It contains information that was shared to you at the retreat. So with regrets, Dr. Heisted will not be with us tonight to answer any questions, because for the most part you did that at the retreat. All of the tables are what he provided. I want to also draw your attention to the information that's shared on the back page of the annual report, which is the curriculum review cycle ensures continuous improvement. This document that is included in the annual report is annually provided by the Pathways Advisory Committee, presented by some of my esteemed colleagues who were just at the table. The Pathways Advisory Committee does review the content and provides their insights as well as some editorial suggestions to that. So that piece in its entirety has already been vetted and approved by the Pathways Advisory Committee. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions, or if not, look forward to your approval. You have had this ahead of time for a chance to review and peruse it as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Kaufman? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page 6 of the school pages here, where you got the district profiles, and on the bottom it's got the total number of pre-K through 12 licensed staff, and it's got the 857 in the female and male split, and then it has the number of minority or staff of color at 230. Is that total staff, or is that licensed staff?
This I would have to look to, I don't see here, but the information that was provided here, this was generated about a month ago with the help of HR. So I'm assuming number of minority of staff of color would include all of the licensed staff, because that's within that boxed area.
But that's district-wide staff is what I'm
That's
guessing.
correct, I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
So do we have any idea what our actual staff numbers are?
Do
I'm
not.
just trying to figure out how much percentage-wise or anything.
Do
Do we
not.
know what our of licensed staff, how many of those are people of color?
Again, that would be a question for Ms. Burrows.
Okay. This seems kind of, to me, when I'm looking at this district profile, how we start with the licensed staff, and then we just jump to all staff. They're not really connected, those two, where you see the amount of licensed staff and the amount of total staff of color. I don't know, do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
I understand.
They don't truly relate to each other?
I'm not sure what you mean by it doesn't.
Well, because we're talking about staff, licensed staff, and we have their percentage of, we
Which
have the
is-
gender split, but we don't have what is our licensed staff of color in here. We just have our staff of color for all of our staff.
Ms. Mary?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm just wondering why it was reported that way. It just seems kind of odd to report it that way, I think.
While we wait, does anybody else have any questions?
I have a casual question. How soon are we going to get the designation of the world's best workforce?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's a statewide goal, and yet at the same time, it's so noble. There evidently the state is trying to describe or establish some criteria to become that.
Well, what I can share with you is this annual report that you have. We do give copies to the state. This is not what is required by the state any longer. The state has a much condensed version. Most of this data is included in that document, though. That is, we're required to file that with the state early December. And so Dr. Heisted, Assistant Superintendent Melby, and his team will be finalizing that piece that goes out in early December.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know if we're waiting on Ms. Burrows or something. I guess my request would be, when we're doing the district profile, if we're gonna first talk about the licensed staff, then the breakdown should be of that licensed staff. If that makes sense. Like, we did licensed staff, and then of that 70% female, 30% male, and then the student or the staff of color. And then if we did total staff, we could do the further breakdown of female, male, and total staff of color. Because I think one could read this and say, oh, of their 857 licensed staff, 230 of them are of color. That's really really remarkable when that's really not the
Well,
case.
we'll
That's
have
kinda
Ms.
why-
Burrows, whether she confirms that. I would take an educated guess that the 230 is the licensed staff that are staff of color. But I may be wrong, so.
Well, I'm sure the licensed staff of color are included in that number, but it's not, I don't think it's anywhere near 230, is what my guess would be.
Yeah.
So we'll clarify that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Should we move on, or? Move on.
Next one, what we're waiting for.
We can just move on. She can get us that information.
Is this a report?
Any other questions about the World's Best Workforce Annual Report? Hearing none, all in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. This brings us to a report on technology from Mr. Weiser, who's out autographing agendas.
I still think that's a bad.
On the bottom of my paperwork.
That's public force. We should get the Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome.
Thank you. Our attempt to provide, to become, or something like that.
Thanks for having us, Board Chair Bartolotta, Superintendent Fujitaki, and board members. I'm here with Digital Learning Coordinators Holly Skadsam and Karen Qualley, formerly of Olson Middle School and Normandale Hills Elementary, to give a 15 or 20-minute overview of an element of NTL we call flexible learning and flexible spaces. So I'll give you a brief introduction, and then I'll turn it over to the experts. And then, if you hang in there, there's a virtual field trip, a little fun experiment at the end.
Can we get up and walk?
Ms. Bunkholt wouldn't let us
Right
leave
from
the
the
room. Just as a reminder, in 2013, voters of Bloomington passed a Safe and Innovative Schools referendum. Part of that innovative schools component of that referendum was Next Technologies for Learning. We've been working 3 years on that process. Next Technologies for Learning, we've all been around, you've all been around in that time, so hopefully this is familiar to you. The 3 elements are digital content, shrinking the backpack from 30 pounds to 3 pounds. We sometimes say anytime, anywhere learning, which is about extending the school day, trying to match students better for when they're ready to learn and where they're ready to learn. And then personalized data, getting the right data to students and to families so that they can be successful in our schools. We come to you at different times with deep dives in one of these areas. Tonight we're going to talk about flexible instruction, that's in that anytime, anywhere category, and some of the impacts it's having in our school settings. Just as a brief overview, we turned a corner this fall in that digital content area. Being the 3rd year of a 3-year implementation, we now have a core, a foundation of digital equipment in students' hands that includes the devices, it includes guaranteed internet access, skill development, robust network and support systems. And so this graphic is meant to represent that if you're in one of our buildings as of this fall, that final stage of implementation for the first phase of NTL, we have 1-to-3 ratio of iPads for our early childhood to grade 2 students. From grades 3 through grade 12, we have a 1-to-1 program using Chromebooks. So these students are carrying Chromebooks with them every day, all day, and the opportunities that creates is tremendous. 4th graders on up, many 4th graders, but 5th graders on up are carrying those devices home as well. So that's a new level of access for our students. The spectrum continues, of course, into adulthood. So in our adult basic ed program and choice through community ed, we have also infused technology there that's appropriate for those programs, typically in the form of carts of Chromebooks. So that's the foundation. We've laid that final layer of foundation this fall. Elementaries are going through that transition of what does that look like when you have that technology in your classroom. And so that's where I want to pivot and hand off to Holly here to talk a little bit about that next phase, which is that anytime, anywhere learning.
Hi, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with teachers to move them further along the spectrum to provide that anytime, anywhere learning experience for their students. So the first thing I'll talk about is last year, Karen and I were new to the district and, well, not the district, but new to ESC, and we formed the flexible learning cohort, which was formerly known as the flipped cohort. So previous to this cohort, we had a lot of teachers going through some PD to flip their classrooms. I'm sure that's familiar to a lot of you. We've heard about the flipped classroom. It's been around for many years. So Karen and I really broadened that and had teachers start thinking about what other models of instruction could become anytime, anywhere instruction models in their classroom. And so we had teachers starting to think about station rotation, especially in those younger grades with the 1 to 3 iPads. And then flipped was still an option, but we wanted people to start thinking about flexible instruction, which is like the true model of where we can give students that complete control over the time, place, pace, and path of their learning. And so one example of the flex self-paced mastery model is the 5th grade math, which I think some of you may have heard of. We're going to dive into that in just a minute. But just about the flexible learning cohort, in 15-16, Karen and I had 70 members. And this year we've moved ourselves up to over 100, so about 2% of our teaching population. 12%. 12%. Sorry. So we're going to deep dive into flexible math instruction. These are teachers that we got together who joined the flexible learning cohort last year. And over last year and into this year, I'll show you the timeline in a moment, we had them create a flexible math program. And so these are some of the main bullets of what that program is aiming to do. So we want it to be mastery-based. We want it to be personalized to the students. We want them to access that content anytime, anywhere. Obviously, we're using digital content as our mode of instruction, student-centered and data-driven. And so all of these bullets you're going to see represented in this program. In a little bit, we're going to hear from students about how that program's going. But a peek at the timeline will tell you just how much this group has got done. So in last year in 15-16, in the fall, we gathered our 6 teams, which actually turned out to be 7 because Ridgeview joined us over the summer. So they prioritized standards with the help of C&I and turned everything into student-friendly I can statements and then created units of study. And then over the spring, they started to develop the procedures and routines that would change in their classrooms, starting for implementation this fall. And then over the summer, we had subgroups create all of the assessments for each unit that we created. So then this fall, we've implemented, and it's going really well. We're in 7 of the 10 elementaries. And our work this year is just to see how it goes and then change as needed. So John likes to pop this in here just to say, why are we doing this? So a lot of this is this 5th grade cohort is being led by myself and Kelsey Nash. We were teachers that used the flipped model. 2013, this data study came from, and we had really great results with that model in our classroom. And so our goal was to kind of take some of that learning that we had in our classroom and expand it wider. Would you add to that, John? You like this slide?
I do like this slide. It's good to look at data. So this slide was before you back in 2013. Dr. Heisted presented it. It was beat the odds, right? The concept here is a proof of concept. Is this thing that we experienced in 2013, is it a one-time effect? Is it tied to a couple of spectacularly talented teachers, or is it a model that can be replicated across sites? So what you're seeing, the description that you're hearing is our attempt at replicating that beat the odds achievement across 7 sites. How will we know? Well, we have assessment, and that assessment tells us really important things as educators. It tells us based on the expected growth of the normal Bloomington plan, how much a student is expected to grow, and if there's statistically significant growth above that, you can attribute it to things like experienced teachers, a model, access to content, stretching the limits of time and place and path and pace. So that's why that slide's there.
I would say just adding from this, Kelsey and I implemented the flipped classroom model, but that's moved to like what I said, the flex mastery base. And so just in a minute, I'm going to show you some feedback from students, and they're going to be talking about their flexible math program, so they call it that themselves. And some of the highlights you're going to hear is that they truly are all able to move at their own pace through the Minnesota State Standards in 5th grade. If they complete the Minnesota State Standards for a unit, they're moved into 6th and 7th grade standards that relate to those same topics. So you're going to see some kids that got through Unit 1 really fast, and they're talking about moving into the next standards after that. You're also going to see that they're going to talk about how personalized it is just to them, and that they have opportunities to move ahead, stay behind. One little guy is going to tell you that there's no limit to what he can do. So the kids are very excited about this, and their attitudes about math we're starting to see those things change. So this data is great, but I also think there's so much qualitative data that we're gathering from the kids and the teachers as they're implementing this. So I'm going to share the video with you guys. This is Poplar Bridge Elementary, one of our 7 elementaries.
I think the best part about it is that you can pace yourself and go at your own pace.
What I like about flexible math is that it helps to keep me organized. I know that you have to get it done by a certain date, so it helps you to say, like, I have to get this thing done by this time period.
There is really no limit. Like, you can go, and when you check out with the teacher, you just get victorious and it's like, yes, I finally finished it. And when you're behind, like, there's no limit of your time. There's only a limit of how much time you have at home. So it's really nice to have it where you're in control of it.
Something that's really good about flexible math is you can move at your own pace, so nothing holds you back.
It's because I don't have to wait on everybody else to do their stuff. I can do mine individually. And if I was on a problem and I didn't know what it was, everybody wouldn't have to wait for me.
So I kind of like how it's harder to fall through the cracks with this because you have to go through so many things before you can pass and move on from the unit before, and it's just a lot more organized. And I also like how the things that I couldn't really memorize last year, this year I can go back and really understand those things.
Well, it's fun because you know that you have relief that you're finished with Unit 1, and I like learning new stuff, so it's good.
Are you happy you worked hard after finishing all of that? Because it was really hard. It's long.
Yeah, it's like you feel proud of yourself after you finish Unit 1, and then they give you challenges and extensions, and then it's like, yay, more.
Whatever that it said, yay more.
Yeah, did you say yay more work? That you must have paid them, right?
We pulled these kids out of their classrooms. We came to Poplar Bridge and just were videoing, and they didn't give us any specific kids. We were just kind of bopping around to classes and talking to the kids and pulling random kids out into the hall to just ask them what they thought. So actually most of this is just impromptu. So.
Jim has a question.
Yeah, just while we're still on that. So what do they do when they get done with math and they're all done early? Do they read a different book, or do they do something else, or do they go to 6th grade math?
Yep. So there's 6 units, And Unit 1 goes on for about 6 to 7 weeks. So if they complete all the 5th grade standards, if they master all the 5th grade standards quicker than that 6 weeks, then we have challenges and extensions waiting for them, which is really just activities and projects and exploration built around 6th and 7th grade standards.
Okay, and then how long a period is their math class, so to speak?
Most are anywhere from 70 to 90 minutes a day. Depends on the school.
So when they get to 6th grade, could they potentially be doing 7th grade math or 8th grade math?
Yeah, we find that this is actually a great grade to implement something like this because moving into middle school, they get placed into their classrooms based on their spring MAP score. So it's kind of a nice transition if they score very high in the spring because they were able to get to more standards in 5th grade, then that just places them into a higher track or a faster track when they get to middle school. So it'll be interesting to see if over time more kids are being placed higher because they're being exposed to more standards at an earlier age.
You got another one?
Yeah, and that is just in the, it says six schools are in the fall. What's the 7th school?
7 schools, Ridgeview's the 7th school.
Oh, Ridgeview, okay.
Just one quick one. First of all, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to see you. Some kiddos like to have it written down in order, a syllabus, so to speak. How does this format fit the kids that want to know what comes next and next and next and are just used to being given it that, here's your assignment for the day or
Well, I
able to
think
handle
this makes it even more clear for them because they have the whole unit laid out for them. They're all built in Google Slides, if you're familiar with Google Slides. So each slide in the slide deck is a new target. And so they can just cruise around to those different slides, choosing their path, their pace, their time. So everything for the whole unit, all of the targets, all of the things that need to be completed per target are laid out for them at the beginning of that unit. And so they kind of, like that one girl was talking about, it keeps me organized. I get to kind of make my plan. And another kiddo said it's just nice to know what I'm supposed to do. So I'd say that's even more clear to them versus a typical classroom. They're told the target for that day, but they maybe don't know what's coming the next day or don't remember what was there 2 days before. It's kind of all laid out for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the kids that struggle, because not everyone is saying, great, I want more. How does this model help them? Does it identify that they're struggling? What type of interaction is there to identify that maybe a student isn't necessarily keeping up with maybe a daily assignment?
Yeah, so we built the program to be very data-driven, so teachers are getting data coming into their inbox daily. Each lesson is built around a video that's embedded in a Google form. So when kids watch the first pre-test video, they answer some questions, and then once they click submit, that data goes to their teachers. So the teachers are using that data to kind of inform which groups they pull together and which kids they teach in small groups. We also use Khan Academy, the program Khan Academy, which spits data at teachers continually. So they've got that data, they got the Google Sheet data, and then they've just got the data of looking at their kids. The whole program's built so that they're working with kids either one-on-one or in small groups. So the kids are getting that smaller ratio of teacher and student the whole period.
Great, that sounds great. I think that the young lady that said it keeps her organized, I'm going to have her talk to my sons.
Difference between girls and boys.
The only thing I would add there, a couple things that occurred to me were the qualitative part of this is every time you see one of these videos, because as these guys go out and look at how things are rolling out this fall, when you pan the room, what you typically see is teachers working with smaller numbers of students, either one-on-one or in small groups. Those are the students who probably need that extra help. And other parts of the room, you see kids going through guided practice on an individualized basis because they can. So that's point one. That's kind of a qualitative difference. I think that's important. The second is, part of our larger effort around NTL is this transfer of ownership. It's putting data into students' hands and and putting learning into students' hands by giving them access to the content and not having it be as adult-driven as may be traditional. This is another one of those where the syllabus is very outlined in such a way that students feel empowered to know what's next tomorrow, next week, and the week after, and can work at their own pace. And so you frequently hear these comments about, oh, I love that I know where I'm going and I can go as fast as I want. So.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I would say not only is the teacher getting that influx of data, but the kids are also getting that. So as soon as a kid submits that form, they know how they did. As soon as they complete their tasks on Khan Academy, they know how they did. So they're not having to wait for the teacher to tell them how they did. They're just getting that immediate feedback, which is pretty powerful for them as well, to keep them moving along their track.
So the next part of this is once you change instruction, that guides a change in many other things, parts of the system. And so I'll have Karen talk to you a little bit about that.
Good evening. As we start to see the models that Holly was sharing with us earlier, we start to see that our classroom also takes on a different shape, and we're really allowing the instruction to shape how the room appears to us, less so than how the room is arranged, do we follow that position. And so, sorry, I might be too close. So flexible instruction really does vary from a traditional looking classroom where maybe we won't see all the desks facing a single screen. Instead, we'll see a variety of spaces for learning based on student need. And so again, it's really about having the ability to shape that room on a dime. You can reconfigure that space for a different type of learning. Some of these spaces include the campfire, which becomes that interactive space where students are facing each other, they're responding to each other's questions. It can also provide the cave, which is a place to do that sort of reflective learning, independent learning, when you need your own space. I think we've all experienced that in our professional lives. The sand pit is more of a hands-on place for students to experiment with a variety of tools, allowing them to fail and retry and work in teams. It can be a noisier space, but a very constructive one. The watering hole can be an informal space where students gather. It doesn't mean that this exchange of ideas is non-academic, but it is less formal and allows them to find those places within the room where they need to collaborate and meet. And then the mountaintop. This is really a space, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's virtual, where students can share their learning and their work, either outside of the classroom through those virtual means or right within the classroom for each other. And so it's really not about providing furnishings. It's about having the instruction really determine how our rooms can look and how our students can interact with their space, their teachers, and their peers. Also coming with this are access to some flexible tools. So we start to see an increased desire for mobility around the room. We don't see as many instructors, teachers standing at the front of the room because they're not teaching all kids at the same time, and not all kids are doing the same amount or type of learning at the same time. So we are kind of moving to our wireless model where our students and our teacher can interact in various ways. We also encourage that small group student collaboration, and there are some technologies that enable them to do that. This is a student collaboration station where students could pull up a few seats and actually share their learning on a larger screen, maybe in a corner or a pocket of a room, versus taking over that whole instructional space. We do have a virtual tour for you today. We have loaded 5 Google Cardboard, which is just a kind of a 3D viewer. And we have taken a 3D image of both room 502, which is actually just down the hall, if you do want to poke your head in this evening and look at the space or try out some of those furnishings, and of the Washburn Elementary School library. So you can get sort of an idea of what that space looks like as we begin to promote some of this flexible learning.
Good, you can look up, down, look all around.
Here, Douglas, share.
Do I need to take my motion sickness?
I would recommend if you've never done it, don't stand up. Yeah, if it's your first try. You'll notice that you can look all around. John's going to take us out so we can have a 360 image for those of us that don't have the goggles.
So for the audience who isn't experiencing it firsthand, this is what some of the groups are viewing. Go ahead, Karen, whatever you want.
Sure. So some of the things you'll notice in this space, you'll notice a combination of soft seating, seating at different heights. All of this can be flexibly arranged. So the way you see it today, or the day the picture was taken for this, I'm fairly certain is not the way it looks right now. This space gets used for students that come in groups. Students that have flexed out of their classroom are using this space. Staff use this space as well for meeting.
This is Washburn Elementary.
Just within the media center. The images that were shown previously about the different spaces were from the 5th grade classrooms, also at Washburn.
This is is this the prototype at Washburn now?
Yeah.
And you'll see some existing furnishings. It's not a completely, entirely new space, but it does provide some opportunity to change the room.
How often do they get to go in there?
It depends. So at Washburn, students are flexibly scheduled, so they can come in as small groups need or as teachers want to use that space.
Some of the kids don't want to leave.
I know.
Right. This is becoming one of the most popular meeting rooms here at ESC. This is the computer lab, which was traditionally rows of tables with large desktop computers. It currently fits more people than it did before, and it functions in a variety of ways, not just to look at a computer monitor anymore. So now you'll notice the absence of those hardwired large desktops, and you'll see that people are bringing their own devices. They're using the space for small meetings and large.
How does the staff like the new configuration?
Of this room in particular, or at Washburn?
Got a thumbs up from Kubis back there.
I'll take my computer sometimes and go and just work in there and utilize the space. It's pretty phenomenal.
One of the benefits, especially at Washburn, they received their furnishings this fall, and so iteration has been key. And what's nice about these furnishings is that you're not tied to a certain configuration. You can exchange parts between other classrooms. So within the 5th grade classrooms at Washburn, they've, with their construction model, even created an opening between the two rooms where they could have some fluid movement of those furnishings based on what they were doing in their spaces between the two classrooms.
Can the students at Jefferson go over there and do that too? Because they're really frowning that they missed out on all of this stuff.
They're very excited at Jefferson about some upcoming plans. So that does take me to the next slide. So this has sort of been a springboard to get buildings thinking about the use of existing funds to think differently about how we make purchases with our furnishings to promote flexible learning and flexible spaces. You'll see that Washburn has been implemented, hence the model that we're looking at. And currently I'm working this year with Valley View Elementary, Oak Grove Elementary, Indian Mounds, and Poplar Bridge to do that planning, to start thinking about that space. They're currently receiving designs and having conversations with their staff teams at their buildings about what they'd like it to look like for next year.
So it's not necessarily all the schools are going to look like what Washburn did. It's going to be more of a local school. I mean, the teachers are give their own input of what they want their space to look like, and
so to keep the process sustainable and manageable, we are working with a particular vendor, and there is sort of a kit of parts, a menu to select from. It doesn't mean that every room has to look the same. There are options, but there is some consistency in the quality of the furnishings and in the conversation of how to use that space.
Maybe we hit it upside down.
Is anyone dizzy?
One of the learnings from Washburn was they gave advice to these next schools that small kids can move some furniture up, but they don't have the body mass to then move it back down.
So when you're saying the 2016-17 planning implementation, is that going to be over the summer that these these schools are going to have this
Yeah,
construction
depending
done,
on
or-
that planning process, and maybe they'll revisit their plans before sending in their final order. They could have those things by spring,
Oh, okay.
potentially.
Okay, thank you.
So that was our summary. We talked to you about as part of a larger NTL, the larger NTL plan. We've laid a foundation with 3 years of work in digital content and anytime, anywhere learning and in personalized data. This is some of the next layer on that foundation. We're working with 12% of our teachers who are opting into this program. It's not a requirement. It's teachers who are ready to move along that spectrum of flexing their instruction. And then what are the ramifications for all of us as instruction changes? How do spaces change? What other questions might you have for us?
This is really slick for the kids. How about the parents having to understand what the kids are doing now? And all of a sudden they go home and they share this stuff and the parents are going, oh, that's nice. Well, see you later. I'm going in the other room and read the newspaper or something like that. I mean, it's kind of a drastic change for a lot of parents to see this development or evolution of this technology.
Absolutely. So I think what we're finding teachers doing is, depending on the needs of the parents, helping them out with maybe sending home a flipped video of what to expect for the year. So giving them a visual and plus some teacher explanation of what this year is going to look like and how it's going to look different. I had a team at Poplar Bridge prepare all of these materials to get their parents ready for this year of this flexible math. And it turned out that 2 weeks in, they had gotten no phone calls about just how it was going to work or how it was different, but rather they just kept getting an influx of, this is amazing, my kid is telling me how much they love math, I can't stop my kid from doing math. So I think that excitement they're seeing from their kids helps with it, but I also think we do absolutely have to prepare our parents for the change. And so something we suggest to our teachers is do what you would do with your kiddos. So flip a video telling, or get your parents involved, have them do the first assignment with the kids, or kind of get them involved hands-on so that they can know what to expect for the year. But we do lay it out pretty well for the parents.
And then I had just one more, and this is just the math. Now, the department is working on other subjects and topics.
So the flexible cohort has about over 100 teachers in it, and they're not all from math. We have the humanities represented as well. And it's really a place for those teachers to explore and get some of the time to explore how to provide students with the opportunity to control the time, place, path, and pace of their learning. So we do have across grade levels and across content areas.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So the graph that you have is only for 2012 to 2013. When do we get the 2013 through 2017 graph? Your favorite slide.
My favorite slide. We haven't, so Kelsey Nash, Holly's partner in the 2013 year, is now one of those TOSAs that you heard our earlier colleagues talk about. She's one of the TOSAs in the learning and teaching department. So Kelsey and Holly have moved on into leadership roles. The team at this school has moved on has iterated on this model. We have not done this in-depth follow-up study from Dr. Heisted. Our intent was to look at that whole fifth grade cohort, the 7 schools who are doing it, and look at the growth in this year, because we have a defined starting point and an ending point. That Normandale Hills team went through quite a bit of change in changing people, and you hear me say it, teachers matter. Probably the most important thing that we do. These tools are great, but in the hands of teachers, they can really accelerate what's going on. So I don't have data from that interim, but our intent is to do that deep dive again at the end of this year.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask, and maybe I missed it, but so with the flex learning, is that instead of or in addition to, or some places are still doing flipped and some places are choosing to do flex? How does that working out?
Yeah, so we have 100+ teachers, and they've all chosen the model that they prefer. So a lot of the middle school right now is flipped math. In the elementaries, we might see more of the station rotation because that fits best with just how they work with their kids, and they're already doing that rotation model anyway, so they're putting one of those rotations as a technology rotation. And then the flex model, I would say, takes the most time to develop. So it's likely going to come out of something that Karen and I have led collectively, where we have teachers working together to create the content versus a whole team on their own trying to make a year's worth of digital content. That's going to be a huge undertaking. So.
At the high school, we do have a team at Jefferson. The Algebra 2 math team has spent a large amount of time collaborating to really set up that flex model, but they're not entirely finished with their course, even though they've spent much of their skills and talents creating that content.
I guess my personal observation is the flex one is the one that I would be most excited about, because it allows the student to excel to their fullest capacity that they're able to. Having done flipped myself, I'll say it's not for everybody. It is definitely a different type of learning, and it takes a certain level of commitment. And so I guess my worry with that, and maybe you can address it, is if there's students, if the idea is you would do your homework, or not your homework, you would learn the material at home and then come back to school with questions. If kids are in gymnastics and dance and soccer and baseball and football and running and whatever, or they have jobs, or they don't have the family support, or they're at Kids Safari until 6 o'clock and then they don't get home until 7, by the time they get home and eat dinner, it's time for bed. That could be trickier.
So what
we're... Or if it's only in the high school, then obviously they would be going to bed at 7, but if you were doing that in 6th grade or 5th grade, it might be trickier.
There's been an evolution of the flipped model. So traditionally it has sort of a concrete definition of consuming content outside of the school day, coming to school and getting help or doing an activity. And what we're seeing are, as teachers iterate and refine that model, we're seeing a lot more of it happening within the classroom. So we're seeing, it appears to be almost like a combination of a station rotation and a flip model. And it's not always just, well, you didn't watch your video, so now you can't do what we're all doing today. It's really about having a lot of opportunities for students to connect. So it's
not what I remember from 8 years ago.
The evolution of it has evolved a little bit. It's not sort of come with me at the same time. We all watch the same video. We all do the same activity. It's morphing more into that flex model. Okay. It's just that the flex model takes a lot of content creation and a lot of preparation to really do that well, so you can just let kids go. And to do that, you have to really be able to invest some of your time and planning.
Right, thanks.
Yeah.
Another quick question. You have this in the elementary schools. You say you have it in some in middle, some in high school. Is it possible for one student to come from a flipped classroom or a flex classroom from 5th grade go into 6th grade and not have that same experience? And then what happens when they come from, this is really cool, I want more, to a little bit more structured and perhaps maybe the way they did it in 4th grade or 2 years ago or whatever? What happens to that energy that I want to do more?
It currently is an opt-in program, so the teachers that are embracing this model, not all of them are in the flex cohort. We know that there are teachers who are doing this without being members of this cohort, but it really does mean, because it's an opt-in, that it can be a varied experience for students across.
Would the teachers have information from in middle school from incoming 5th graders that might say, these students were in this class, and maybe it's just a heads up for them? And are they asking for that, or is that something that even makes sense for me to ask?
Well, I'm trying, I might need more information to see what I'm answering.
Okay, so with teachers, if I'm a 6th grade teacher and I don't have this flex program in my class,
okay,
and 5th grade students are coming in, and I'm going to have 12 students from A school that had a flex class, would it benefit that teacher to know that they came from that environment? Would they be able to learn from that? Is that information that's available to them?
I don't know what our communication loop is currently for that. Maybe Holly, I'm not trying to just pass to you, but I actually don't know what the communication loop is. I would imagine it would be a benefit to know that that's where that student comes from. But again, it does take a fair amount of time to become fluent with the tools and with that model of teaching. That teacher probably wouldn't just readily be able to accommodate that model.
I think too that with this 5th grade math program, it's also word of mouth. So we're starting to see that the program is spreading to other areas. Kelsey and I are going to be visiting a special ed meeting that is elementary all the way through high school, special ed teachers who have heard about the program and are interested in learning more. So we're going to go speak to them about it and tell them just more about it, so that if they are a middle school teacher and this kiddo is coming from this school with this experience, that they know more about it and can hopefully try to build off of that. So I would say we're taking opportunities as they come to share this as widely as possible and as much information about it as possible. But as Karen said, with it being opt-in, it's tricky to, you don't want to give people too much information if they're not ready for it. But you also, if they're asking for it, we absolutely provide it. So I wouldn't say we're not trying to share. We're trying to share as much as possible what we're doing, with hopes that it'll inspire maybe more teachers to adopt some sort of model like that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the gifts.
Do I get to keep the
Hot
iPhone?
touch. All right.
Your hand's full.
Next, we're going to have a report on the insurance committee. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Chair Bartola, Superintendent Fujitaki, and members of the board. I'm going to give you a quick insurance committee update. And hopefully it'll be fairly quick. So the objective, I'm just giving you an update on the self-insured health and dental insurance plans and how they're performing currently. We have 2 plans on our self-funding. We have a dental and a health plan. Our dental carrier is Delta Dental. Our health insurance is Preferred One. Our consultant for both of those groups is One Digital. They recently changed their name from Corporate Health Services. So we still have the same vendor, just a different name change. Overseeing the 2 plans, we do have an insurance committee that meets regularly to look at the claims and to go over the information. We're meeting about 3 to 4 times a year now is what we've decided, with the ability to add a session if we need to consider changes in the plan. So what our insurance committee does, we have membership from all of our units on that committee. They help recommend a consultant to oversee the plans and to help us as we look at plans. The insurance committee also recommends rates and rate increases. And so when I come before the board and say, hey, this is what the insurance committee is recommending, it's already been vetted through that committee and they've made that recommendation before I come to you. We also review claims and financial performance of the plan. And I can tell you it's a very well-educated bunch on insurance and how plans work, and it's a very good group to work with. So the overview of our self-insurance dental fund. We did have a 0% premium increase that was recommended by the insurance committee and accepted. You can see the beginning fund balance, what our revenues this year is, our expenditures, which are about 40,000 more than our revenues, and what our ending fund balance is in that group. Our self-insured medical fund, the committee did recommend and the board approved a 4% premium increase for this. Again, you can see what the beginning fund balance was, the revenue, expenditures, our revenue over expenditures, and our ending fund balance at this time. So if you look at the two, the funds are performing well. I don't have any concern. Our performance metrics, comparing last year's plan to this year, our membership has gone up slightly. So we went from 2851 in 15-16 to 2880 in 16-17. Our claims the previous year were 4.7 million. Our claims this year for the same period of time, 4.6 million. So very close. Average monthly claim amount per member, previous year $475, currently $437. So again, overall assessment is that the plan is doing really well. If you've sat on, I know many of you have sat in that committee, you know things can change quickly throughout the course of the year. We're still early in the year, so it looks promising, but it's self-funding. What that means is what we collect, we pay for our claims. So that group plays a very important part in setting what that should be and how to cover those claims. So, but it's performing well right now, and I want to knock on wood because I want it to continue to perform that way. Any questions?
Tom, we'll start that in.
Okay, so I'm looking at the health insurance, got the 4% premium increase. And I was on the committee last year, and I'm trying to refresh my memory. I think we did it that was going to be for the next 2 years?
Yep, so it was
So that was last year
yep,
and then this year?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
they will be recommending something different for?
Yep, we'll be going through our
next
bid,
year.
the bid process in January, February, and then you'll be seeing the results of that after that. Yeah.
Okay. Because the 4%'s a very reasonable increase compared to state average, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
so I'm just
exactly.
wondering- just
I
kind of
think-
worried about what the next one could be.
No, I think our plan is performing very well.
Okay.
And I hope it continues this year. Usually you see a couple of bad years every, they say 3 out of 10. Well, I think you're in your 9th or 10th year and you've only had a couple bad years, so we're kind of due for one, but hopefully not. I mean, hopefully this year will go smoothly, but.
Yeah, thank you.
I was reading an article, there was a company, I forget who they are, and even if I knew, I wouldn't name them, because you just shouldn't, where it was like 2 women, all of a sudden they had like these hard pregnancies, and the child ended up in the hospital for like months and months and months, and so now all of a sudden they were self-insured and they were in trouble. So what do we have for backup if all of a sudden we say, well, that's great that we've only paid out 4.7 million, but we're going to have to pay out like 8.
So what you do when you're in self-insured, you have a self-insured plan. We have a stop-loss plan on top of our.
Okay.
So at a certain point, once a claim goes over a certain amount, that stop-loss plan kicks in and helps cover that.
Okay.
Yeah, but of course that affects your rates the next time, but yeah.
Okay. So at some point, if we were to spend down, all the fund balance, or we wouldn't go that far.
No, you wouldn't want to do that.
You wouldn't hit that. You wouldn't hit that point before you got to your stop loss. So the stop loss is like per claim, not per.
It's per person.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So it would take a major catastrophe for us to lose $5 million in 1 year. Is what you're saying?
I would hope so, yes. And I would hope we would never have a year quite like that. But as you said, things can happen, and things can happen quickly. So it just depends on how the plan performs for that year, which is why this committee plays such an important part. We monitor those claims and our claims throughout the year. So we have a good idea of how many high claims we have and what's kind of trending, so.
So would it be more likely all of a sudden, instead of having one massive claim, because we would have a stop loss, it's more like you have a whole bunch of people with kind of.
Claims that are over 200,000.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
I have several questions, so bear with me, okay? First of all, the consultants recommend a certain amount when we became self-insured to have in our reserves, just for what Rick was talking about, in case we have major claims. And they had a targeted goal. Have we met the goal of what we needed in the reserves? Or are we still gradually building up the reserves? Or are we there yet? Do you know? Because that was one of the questions before was, are we there and how long will it take us to get there, and recommendations there?
Well, I wasn't here when the
Okay.
plan started, so I don't know what your goal was. I would say right now, it's at a healthy level, but it's, again, I think as we go forward with our next bid, I think we'll get more information on that fund balance and where we want it to remain or where it should stay. I think it's hard to have, you know, a hard rule on that because things can change, you know, throughout the year. But I think that is something that we'll talk about in that committee going forward too. I think right now for self-funding, you guys have been in 10 years. You guys have a good, mature plan right now from what I'm seeing.
And then I just want to clarify, this plan, every employee in the district has an option to be on this plan, is that correct? Or I don't know.
If they're
for
eligible,
full-time employees.
yeah, but they're benefit eligible, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't matter if you're the principal or if you're the
So-
bus driver, you all have the same health insurance?
All the same plan,
Okay.
yeah.
And then with that, can you tell me what the max out-of-pocket their cost is per year?
It depends if you're going single or family.
Actually, let me back up. Can we talk about what premiums are or not? Is that a question I can ask or not?
You can. I'm trying to think if I have that with me, in front of me tonight. Single, full-time, it's free. There is no.
So if you're the employee, it's free.
Right.
Is that correct? And
Yeah.
then there's premiums for
family.
plus one and
single,
plus family?
Yep, single plus
Okay.
one and family. And I'm
Okay.
trying to remember, it's about 70% of the premium is covered by the district.
Okay. And then what is the max out-of-pocket per year?
We have a
single?
we have a high deductible plan,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have an HSA account that's offered through the district where we put half of the deductible into that HSA and the employee pays half out of the pocket. You can think of it that way. After that deductible is met,
Mm-hmm.
it's 100% coverage. There's no other additional charges to employees if they stay in network.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Clarification, when you say for the singles, it's free, it's not really free, it's paid for by the district.
Right. Sorry, no. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wouldn't
not,
it be
we're
nice
getting it
if
for
we,
free.
if we could
And
get free insurance?
Free
like-
to the employee.
Yeah, free to the employee. There's no cost. The district pays that
I
coverage.
think it's like $750
Yeah,
or something.
that's $755 is what I think
Okay.
is coming to, yeah.
So
month,
it's
yeah.
755 or somewhere
Yeah.
around that per one individual for their monthly? Okay, what the district covers, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
So do you have any idea how much, like, a family is paying out of pocket a month for their health? I mean, is it, that's
Boy, that I don't know off the top of my head. I should know because I do that,
yeah.
14 or 15.
but I don't.
It's something you can just send us later.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
could be
you
fine.
can just send it to us.
I think it's on the website.
Yeah, if you pull up it's listed on the district website on our benefit page. It lists
Oh,
all the
all right.
breakdown. Yep.
All right,
I did-
thank you.
Of costs.
Oh,
And our Delta costs and everything.
I
are
did
out
a
there.
Google search for Bloomington Public Schools health insurance, and it was like the first.
It's all public.
So-
It's all out there.
So then when people ask me that, I just say.
Go to
you
the
can
website.
Look on the website.
Go to the
Yep,
website.
thank you.
But I'll send it by email too. We just have a sheet. I can send you the sheet.
So we can
Any
find it in
questions
5
over here?
seconds.
There you go.
Well, I have one. With
780.
all the things we've heard, you know, about 25% increases by different programs,
900.
and we have to go out for bid. Have we given any thought to what if it comes back, you know, that we have to go with the 30% rate hike? Just pick that number. Next year. You know, has any thought been given to how we're gonna handle that? Because the district really can't afford to incur that gigantic of a,
Yeah,
You know.
no, we've had initial conversations with, is that One Digital? Is that, no. And have looked at we start looking at our claims for the previous year and what we think and anticipate our renewal might come up as, because you can start to kind of look at that, start now, because that's coming up really soon. I don't anticipate we're going to hit 30% renewals. You never know till you get there.
I just
But-
worry because it's what, you know, all the discussion.
Oh, yeah, all the hype. I think for now, you had a fairly good claim year last year. That's what they're going to be benchmarking off of. And our experience looks good. We're a mature group. We've been together for 9-10 years in the fund. We're stable. That'll all play into the district's favor in that.
Okay. Just wondered. Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? None? Thank you, Mary. All right, it brings us to school board discussion regarding televising board study sessions. We had a short discussion last time. Has anybody given further thought to this?
Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
if you don't mind, I'll take the lead on this one since it was a motion I made, I think it was 3 years ago. Initial intent was really to help facilitate conversation at study sessions, and it was study sessions only. Really, I think what I was talking about was more along the lines of an anxiety. If somebody has, let's just say, for instance, you go to the dentist. I'm going to pick on the dentist because my dentist is my high school buddy. You go to the dentist, you get in the chair, and somebody pats you on the shoulder when they're moving your head down past level, and they say, don't worry about it. It'll be okay, don't worry. That's nice to hear, but in that person's mind, if there's an anxiety, it doesn't matter what you say, it's still there. And right after our last meeting, I was listening to a radio show, and I'm trying to remember, there was a guy was making a film. He had a bunch of war veterans, and he wanted to get their impressions. These were people that saw frontline action, that saw war up close and personal. And they had gotten into a room, and they had agreed to share their stories, and the filmmaker said, okay, we're just going to have a run through. We're just going to go through, and we'll see how this conversation goes. We'll see if you guys if it flows, if it works. And the conversation started, and it went, and it was awesome. And none of the cameras were on, none of the microphones were on. And that was, the people knew that. And then the producer said, okay, get up, take a break, get some water, whatever you want. We'll come back and we'll do it again for real. We'll turn on the cameras. And so they all said, okay, great. They got back, they took their seats. Producer said, okay, I'm going to flip the switch, cameras are on, and none of them said anything. And the producer was telling, it piqued my interest because it was the day after, I think, that we had this meeting. They knew what was going on. They knew what they had signed up for. They signed a release to share this conversation. It was recorded audio and visual. They knew what they were getting into. They had a conversation. Everything was wonderful. And so it doesn't really matter if you say, don't worry about the cameras. Every one of them said nothing. So I have to finish that particular story because somebody might have been listening. What they did was they said, okay, go ahead and take a break. We'll just continue our conversations. They took a break, they came back, they continued the conversations. The cameras were on, but they didn't tell them they were on. They went back after and they said, are you okay with this? They got everyone's okay. If they weren't okay, then they didn't use their video. The point I'm trying to make in an elongated way is no matter what we say, the microphone and the camera make a difference. And if we have conversations that come to us, we want as much conversation as we can. And usually it's in a very short amount of time. There might be 2-3 study sessions. We don't get all year to talk about things, to get people that come and are comfortable with the camera or with the microphone. So we want the best conversation that we can get. And if we see this, if I see this, as I did 3 years ago, as a roadblock, if it's standing in the way of conversation, then it's up to us to move it out of the way or to make an offer to move it out of the way. Now, is there a difference with the microphone on and the camera not? For you and I, for all of us who are used to doing this, probably not. But again, you're in that dentist chair, and the dentist comes in and says, don't worry, it won't hurt. It doesn't matter what you say or how you say it, it's still going to be there. And so I think really what I was talking about was anyone who comes and presents to a work session, a study session, not a board meeting, we owe them the opportunity to be as comfortable and ready to go as possible. So that was the original intent, and really I don't think I've changed. I don't think I've varied in the last 3 years. That's what I got.
Anyone else? Speak to this?
An example of what Dick said was today when the vet was up here talking and said, sorry, I'm a little nervous, I haven't done this before. And so if that's what we're trying to accomplish is, so if someone like that was going to come present something to the board, or it was part of a conversation, to have an open conversation. I mean, I don't know. I don't, and like we mentioned before, we don't have that many study sessions. We're having one tonight, and it's just us. But I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot of controversy over the past 2 years that we've been doing this. I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback either way. I mean, I'm okay keeping it the way that we have it now, because I think you've done a pretty good job of moving things that needed to be moved into the board meeting.
I agree. I'm comfortable the way it is now, too, and just taking a little bit more on what he said. Both of those fellows have been involved in some veteran discussions that we've had. And the one who was more quieter didn't come to the last meeting that we had a discussion where we were talking about a commemorative event for Vietnam era veterans, because he said, I'm just not comfortable talking about this stuff in a big group. And so people have those anxieties, you know. The other one might be more apt to discuss it because he's got some other issues. But I think we have to have a time where we can have some discussions without the cameras on.
Madam Chair and members of the board, you know where I stood with this issue years ago. How many years have we been talking about this? Like 3 years, right?
And 6.
And you know where I stand on that tonight once again. I mean, I completely understand the fact that there are a lot of people that might feel anxious, nervous about the cameras. I myself sometimes feel that way. However, we hardly have any study sessions anymore. That's one thing, you know, like when I came to the board, we used to have board meetings and then study sessions. And, you know, thanks to the great idea of the board back then, the study sessions ended up being televised, just as the board meetings were. And suddenly we don't have that many study sessions anymore. And so somehow part of the material that goes into the study sessions came to the board meetings. And so that's been material that we have been discussing here. So it seems like we are televising the board meetings, and we are including the conversation that used to be included in the study session. So we're still kind of televising both. So there's not that big of a difference between both, except that there's like less time. It's almost like we're rushing sometimes, you know. And honestly, I think that if we're gonna talk about, you know, being considerate to those who feel like, feel anxious because the cameras are on, then we probably need to move into not televising anything at all. Because, you know, if we're gonna give the public information, we're still doing it during the school board meetings, and we're still televising. And honestly, I think that the public deserves to get more information on what goes on here. You know, the public that are not able to make it. Like right now, we only have 2 people sitting there in the public, as members of the public. And the rest of them, you know, where are they? There's a lot of people that are not able to come, especially during the winter time. We have a lot of seniors that still watch the board meetings, a lot of retired teachers, a lot of members of the community that keep watching the board meetings from home. There's a lot of people that are simply not able to come, or even parents who have little kids that at this time of the night, the kids are already in bed or are getting ready for bed. So I don't know, I just truly believe that there's no point of keeping the cameras off during the study sessions. Like the next session that we have after this board meeting, we're gonna be talking about the legislative committee's work and idea about bringing a Bloomington Advocacy Council plan. And we don't even get to let the public know what this is about, what kind of opportunities we are giving to the public, or none of it. And there's so many other things. So I think we need to reconsider, totally understand that people are nervous, but most of the people that we have here presenting are same professionals. It comes with the job, and it comes with our job too. We're elected officials. We're supposed to give this kind of information to people. We're supposed to be transparent, and yet we are not allowing our constituents to get all the information they would really like to get. So keep the cameras on, bring them back.
Madam Chair. I know it's getting late, so I'll try to be brief, okay? I know we've talked about this enough that I think that we beat it up before, and I don't know that anybody has changed their mind. I think the vote will come out the same way. Maybe not. Maybe some people have changed. I don't know. But I just want to say quickly that I do appreciate the other board members being willing, and the superintendent, being willing to move a lot of the things that were in the study session into the board meetings, and that was a compromise that we worked on and said, why does all this stuff have to be in a study session? They can be part of the board meeting. But I agree with Director Corman that people were here presenting things that used to would have been in a study session, and it seems to go fine, and I don't see an issue with it. The other thing is I was thinking about, it's not about people watching it just live, it's that it's there recorded if anybody wants to look something up from 2 months ago, those types of things. And I was sitting here thinking that we had the update on the technology, and we talk about on demand anytime. Well, then we should be on demand anytime when somebody wants to look it up too, is my take on it. And so I still turn them back on for the very few study sessions we have. So, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it was our last meeting in January when we did our organizational meeting, when we came up with the idea of moving all the informational stuff from the study sessions into the board meetings. So I want to thank the chair and vice chair and superintendent for doing that. I think the public has appreciated having that informational stuff in the meeting so they can see them. And what if we had maybe 2 study sessions this year? So we were having a lot less study sessions and putting that information in the meetings. But I mean, I think as part as an elected official for me, I think part of that is transparency and accessibility. And if it were up to me, all of our meetings would be televised and all of them would be accessible to all of the taxpayers whose money we're spending. So even though we have moved these meetings that were in the study sessions to the staff and to the school board meetings, I would still be in favor of televising all of our meetings, including any of our, what they call study sessions.
Well, would someone like to make a resolution? And I'd prefer go longer than 1 year, so we don't have this extended conversation every year regarding the study sessions.
So, I don't even remember what the resolution is that we have. I mean, does it expire, or is it just, if we don't do anything, it just stays the way it is?
Yeah, well, the way I worded it was, this conversation was built in, so in 11 months, we come back to it, and then we would have to vote to sort of extend. So, but the way it's worded is, we always come back to it in 11 months, which is why we're talking about it in November.
But the way I understand it is if we don't do anything, the cameras would go back on. Is that correct? Is that the way you guys read it? That's the way I understand it. And it would take another resolution to keep them shut off.
Yes? David's nodding.
Well, from what I remember, that's what happened. Yep.
That's what.
So
And so it was, hopefully we're having a vote, and that was the intent for the 11-month conversation.
So you want to vote on the last one, or do you want to make a new resolution or a new motion regarding going forward?
Oh, go.
Madam Chair, I guess I would like to move that we don't televise study sessions unless the chair, vice chair, and the superintendent deem it necessary. And then that's adequate time for preparation to televise it. We only need to have a week or whatever it is. Otherwise, we don't televise study sessions.
So I have a question to that. So what would determine whether or not it's...
Somebody seconds it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For a second.
Is there a second?
Sure, let's have a conversation. I'll second it.
Thank
So
you.
Nellie can ask her question.
I'm just asking, so what determines whether or not we decide what is the appropriate study session to be televised? I mean, is there something that we're not supposed to televise, talk about?
See, I'm anticipating discussing possible members of this committee tonight, and I don't know if they want their names, out on the TV right now, because they might say, no, I don't want to be on your committee, or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but we also go through a lot of paperwork here that has a lot of different names, and we don't say the names out loud.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is aren't we going to discuss possible people on this committee by name? I mean, we can't just pass a, no?
No,
And
we're
we,
not.
and
Okay.
in answer to that, we all know what happens with social media when somebody picks up on something, and they can do whatever they want with it, and it gets out into the public arena, and it might not be exactly what was said. So there's always that element, and if we're talking budget issues or something like that, and somebody says, well, I suggest that we eliminate band uniforms, and all of a sudden, that gets picked up, and that goes out to the booster clubs and everything else like that, and it's just, bang, we're just really in trouble. So anytime we have any significant budget issues, anytime we have any significant policy issues or something like that, that we're discussing just in general, we're going to discuss them again at the board meeting where we're going to take action on it. We're not taking any action on discussions. So that's why it's good to have an opportunity just to have discussion without the public picking up on it and doing with it what they may.
Well, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think that it's safe to assume that everything that we talk about is important. So it'd be really difficult to place that burden on whoever the chair and the vice chair and, of course, the superintendent, to make a distinction. We won't televise this one, we will. I think I understand where you're coming from, but I'd like it a little bit more clean, just, study sessions off
or not.
Board meetings on.
So, going to what Director Sorm had mentioned, I don't know that I would want to put that into the hands of the chair, vice chair, and superintendent, just because it seems like it would be a little bit too subjective. I'd be more in favor, and so this would have to be a separate resolution, I suppose. If we just said, if we were going to discuss this every year, that we would do it during our organizational study session in January every year, instead of in November. Or if we were going to just say, we're just going to leave them off, and then just have someone make a resolution and just say, we aren't going to come back to this unless, at any point, someone could always make a motion to bring it back. But if someone wanted something to be televised, like tonight, we could have made a motion to amend the agenda to say, you know what, this Bloomington Advocacy Council formation plan, we could talk about that on camera, and we could have a discussion over, if the chair, vice chair, and superintendent, when they were doing their meeting, decided we should have this as a study session instead of as part of the meeting, then we could have that discussion if someone disagreed, and go from there. Like, for instance, the chair said, well, we're going to be talking about these people, and we say, no, it just says we're going to talk about criteria. It doesn't say we're going to actually name people. So maybe in that case, we'd say, well, then whatever, we just have this conversation now.
You were on the, can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
The vice chair's on that committee.
Yeah, right.
So if you didn't want to have a study session, you could have brought it, you know what I mean? You could have brought that up then to say,
Right, and
we're
so,
not going to name names, so have it at the meeting.
and so for me, I would be fine, if we're going to have a study session, someone says, I object to a study session, let's just bring this to the conversation to the regular meeting, then that would serve the same purpose, versus if we said, you know what, we'd rather not, there's people here, it's public information, but we'd rather not have this conversation on YouTube right now.
Madam Chair,
We could do
can I
that.
just say we're moving into talking about different versions of a resolution that we already have on the table, so can we call a question on that one and vote that one and then talk about the other?
Or you can rescind
Or
it.
whatever, I don't know, whatever
Or
Mr.
amend
Bowman
it.
says over there.
Amend it, rescind it.
I was a little unclear what Jim had in mind. Is he requiring any one of those three to open the meeting to televise?
No.
Televise it, or
All
all
three.
three, or two out of the three?
All three.
All three have
That
to
was my
agree.
intention, if that was not stated thusly.
Right, so are you rescinding or
do you wanna
amending,
vote?
or we're just going to vote on the original? Or
Well,
it's
we'd have to
amended?
vote on Jim's, right?
Okay.
Jim's is on the table now.
Okay. All in favor of Jim's resolution to have the superintendent, the chair, and the vice chair decide whether there's a televised board study session, excuse me? Is that restating it properly? Okay. Please signify by saying aye, or raising your hand, maybe that would be better.
Sure,
Raise your hand.
sure, now my name's on television. Two.
Okay, so 5. All right, so that failed.
Might
So-
want a roll call vote if you're not unanimous.
Okay.
No.
No.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes, because
No.
you're second.
Okay.
I don't have to- You don't have to vote for it because you second. Second just means that you're opening for conversation.
Is that right?
Let's move this along. Does someone have another idea? for-
Sure, I'll make
okay.
the motion.
Okay, go.
I move that starting at the next board study session, that it is televised, and all board meetings and study sessions be televised.
Second.
Is there discussion about that?
I think we already had that discussion.
right.
Is
Then
it fair
let's-
to summarize that way?
Yep.
I don't want to cut anyone off, but
Well, then let's start with a roll call. We won't waste time. Tom?
Yes?
No.
No.
Yes?
No?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Go ahead and go
Being
on.
efficient now.
so that means what? We're back to,
well, we're back to whatever.
I would like to make a motion
Please.
that we make this determination. Let me see here. Do I want to go that route, or should we just say we close them?
It's a month and a half away.
It's a month and a half away,
Yeah.
so we just have this conversation again in January. I'm just going to make a motion that we don't televise study sessions, and that if someone wants it moved into the regular meeting, we just vote to amend the agenda.
Second?
thank you.
I guess you wouldn't have to put that whole thing. I'm just going to say, I would like, be it resolved that we don't televise study sessions.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
We'll start with this one.
So, yes.
No. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Thank you. That is that discussion. Hopefully
1,000
for all
signatures,
time.
maybe?
All right, board member reports. Who wants to start?
What is it?
Thank you.
Went to the PTSA council meeting, was very productive. We talked about a lot of things, all the school representatives. One of the big things we talked about was the 100th year celebration, and that each school was going to try and get stories about each school. And of course, we've been talking with some of the other people in the community who used to belong to Riverside, Cedar Crest, and some of those other schools that that can have some people providing pictures and/or stories. Special Education Advisory Committee met and we're working on goals for 2016-17. And I also attended a couple of the clerical negotiations with nothing to report.
Thank you.
That concludes mine.
Anyone else?
I can go.
Thank you.
Okay, the District Diversity Advisory Committee did not meet. The Legislative Committee, I think, has met twice since last time, but Director Corman's the chair, so she can update you with that. I had a chance to attend fall parties, parade at Olson Elementary, flag raising at a couple schools, and classroom visits with those. And I will say it was interesting to see the flexible learning, because I'm definitely, the presentation, I'm definitely starting to see that in the elementary that I visit. So it was nice to hear them talk about it tonight. Also, I attended a morning meeting of that is held, it's actually 3 different school districts hold this meeting occasionally that all have legislative action committees. So I and Director Bergstrom attended their meeting to learn from them how they're doing legislative action committees, which is the subject of our study session coming up. So we will get updated on that and what we would hope to do there. I also attended the MSBA pre-delegate assembly to go over the resolutions. I think there's 23 resolutions that the Minnesota School Board Association wants to bring forward, and they will meet again in December to vote on those resolutions. For those that don't know, school boards each district can put forward resolutions that they would like. Bloomington Schools does have a resolution in there that was also put forward by several other schools around the innovation zone. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just be quick. So I was able to attend the Parent Advisory Council meeting for early childhood education last week, and due to some of their wonderful fundraising efforts, they are purchasing some water fountains for Pond and Southwood, new upgraded water fountains with the drink filler and better filters. So that's a good thing. And they're also looking to purchase some early childhood special education equipment, some changing tables for all of our early childhood special education sites, and some upcoming events that they're having. This Friday, they're having movie night at Pond at 6 o'clock, and they're showing Finding Dory, which is a cute little movie if you've seen it or haven't seen it. It's not as good as Finding Nemo, but it's still cute. And they're also serving pizza, which I don't think they've done before. So for 50 cents a slice, you can go get some pizza and watch a good movie on the big screen. So if you got some little kiddos, you might want to take them on over to Pond at 6 o'clock. And also another upcoming event, those who were in the child, who had kids, probably remember the Santa photos that they've been doing forever. Well, in their endeavor to be more culturally responsive and inclusive to all families, they're also including a non-Santa component to that. So families will have the option of photos with Santa, but also having an option of professional photos done without Santa. So just a nice family photo that you can do. So I think that's great that they're being more inclusive to all of our community. Also on Veterans Day, I was able to make it to 4 of our schools for the flag raising ceremony. So over at Poplar Bridge, that's where I started, which was pretty cool, that as the flag was raising, a bald eagle flew over the school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I don't know if someone was there and released it, but it was like just perfect timing. And then as I left and I went to Normandale Hills to watch theirs, I got there like as they were raising it, and that same bald eagle was flying over the school. So I don't know if it was following me or what. And then I was also able to make it to both of the Olsons to watch theirs, but there was no bald eagle, but they had the Red Bulls there that were putting up the flag. So I wanted to thank our veterans and our National Army for coming out and joining us in our celebration. And what I learned in conversations with the Red Bulls is that they were deployed. They were the longest deployed unit or National Guard unit to Iraq. So I think it's something that we should all be thankful for their service. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Board Legislative Committee met, but we're having that conversation following this. Also wanted to thank the board for moving forward with the Board Student Advisory Committee with the revamping that we did. I think the students have really appreciated, the high school students something that I had thought all along is that they would want to be involved, and that they would want to be involved even more than what we could imagine. And they decided at their first meeting, when the high school students met, and I just basically said, this is yours, what do you want to do? They said, we want to meet once a month. So we had only been meeting with them twice a year, plus once for VEEP, and they've decided that they're going to meet more often than that. So just wanted to let everyone know, the high school students will be meeting at Kennedy on November 21st from 6:30 to 7:30. That's their next scheduled meeting. Also, we'll be meeting with the middle school students on November 28th, and that'll be here from 5:30 to 6:30. And like we said before, all board members are invited, although you aren't expected, required to attend.
Well, legislative committee coming up. And the other one that I attended was a Pathways Advisory Committee meeting. And during this meeting, what members did, they went through membership roster and they voted on new leadership positions for this year. There was also some questions, if you remember, previous questions about what the job or the role of the advisory committee was. And so we talked about these during our board retreat, and so that information was passed to the committee on November 7th. So Eric Melby was present, and I was present as well, and we had an opportunity of talking with the group, and then there were a few comments and questions. And also, there was presentation of the annual report that we just saw today as well. And that was it.
Can I just ask, how was it received? Because I know that there was some controversy at a previous Pathways Advisory Committee, or not, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but there was questions and concern
There were
about
some
direction?
concerns. I think probably Director Melby was able to really give the right information that was directly attached to what the pathways to graduation was about in the world's best workforce. So I think there was more clarification around that. I think there was the feeling at the very end that it's still not quite clear for some members in the group. However, I think that, and I'm positive that as we move forward and there's more information that we bring and there's more understanding about the world's best workforce, then it will become more clear for everybody. I'm hoping. So we continue to work together. That is the idea.
Well, I know that they only meet 4 times a year, and so it's one of those things where if you miss one meeting, it's like you miss.
Yes, exactly.
It feels like you miss a ton.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the question, well, what if they met more? And they're like, yeah, well, it was hard to get people to commit to every month. So.
And there's such a direct correlation between what the role of this group is and the mandate, the state mandate, that it really is important. Like I said to the group, that it really is important that they get more, become more familiar with what the mandate says or states. So, yeah.
Thanks.
All right, well, we've had some extra time in between our last meeting and this one, so I could have filled up a bunch, but I'm going to condense it down to just a couple, 3 things. As Don had mentioned earlier, I filled in for Rick at a meeting. We went up 36th Avenue North off of 100 and sat at a cafe and had some really good conversation met with members from Robbinsdale, Hopkins, and what was the? Wayzata. And we shared what we have as a legislative committee. They listened, they shared what they have. It sounds like we're very, very close. There's a few T's crossed and we need to dot some I's. Otherwise, it sounds like we're really close to what they have. But essentially what we're talking about is, among other things, affordable, predictable, sustainable funding. And how do we present that conversation to our legislators, and what language do we use so that they don't sit there and scratch their heads and go, what is it and what? So there's 330 some school districts in the state, and every one of them has something that's unique to their district. And so if you bring 330 different platforms with 330 different things, your legislators are going to go, please condense this I want to help you, but please condense this. And that was the gist of this particular conversation. It was really interesting, and saw some people that I had gotten to know over the years that I've been on the board. Also, had an opportunity to stop in over at Olson Elementary. Stopped into a first grade class and listened and learned. And there was they were going over a lesson where they would read a story and then write that story back and then share it with the teacher. And I happened to be at the desk when this one young lady came up and shared it with the teacher. And the story was, and I wrote this down so I didn't forget it, it was about a boy who talked a lot about wolves. And he just kept talking about wolves, and he talked about wolves, and he talked about wolves, and pretty soon nobody believed what he had to say. And this young lady was very animated, and she showed me the text that she wrote down, and it was really, really interesting. Apparently she was, the moral of that particular story was, boys talk too much. I think she had it. When I looked at what she wrote down, I think she had it down. So it was really, really very interesting. And then I had some time to talk to that individual teacher during her professional development time. She shared some of her time with me, and I want to thank her for doing that. Just what's going on in the classroom, how the classroom works, where it could be better, what she really likes. And this was an exceptionally passionate teacher. And I'm just really thankful that I had the opportunity and the time to sit in there. Tom had mentioned that he made it to some flag raisings. Every year, you look to see which ones you can get to. You can't get to all of them. And so this year I chose Kennedy, Indian Mounds, Oak Grove Elementary, and then Oak Grove Middle. And it's really interesting to see how the schools do it differently. You can't get all the student body out of a high school and get them to stand still in front of the flag. Yeah. It just isn't possible. So they have representatives from each grade. And then the service members will, most of the time, they carry a CD player that'll play the music when the flag is raised, and then they read on the 11th day at the 11th hour of the 11th month, the guns fell silent. It's just really very interesting to see. When I made it over to Oak Grove Elementary, they do it very differently. They had representatives from military branches of military, and they were grandpa, mom, just the different branches of the military. And they found somebody, and I meant to ask, but he disappeared in the crowd. I think it was a student, maybe a high school student, who played taps. And nailed it, and it's not easy to play. But it was just really, really interesting to see how they do it, and those kids all hold American flags. So everybody walks through, they sort of walk through all the American flags, and it's a very festive occasion. And that particular, the front door of that school faces east, and the sun was coming up, so everyone was sheltered from the north wind. It was warm. Just really very interesting to see how the different schools participate. And I want to say thank you to all the schools for participating, and I know they do because in the last 5 years, I think I've made it to all of them. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well, I'll just say I'd like to recognize the Bloomington Community Foundation, who honored one of our past employees, Joan Black, last week for her service. I've known this lady a long time and never knew anything. She was like the first curriculum director here. She was essential part of bringing Title IX into the district. I think it was the Title I schools. You name it, this lady practically started it all in Bloomington, so.
I think she was Deb Bunkel's teacher.
And she was. So anyway, I'd like to recognize them and thank them for recognizing her. And I also attended the ESSA meeting with the commissioner. They had it in Burnsville. It was a well-attended meeting, and I started to have a better feel for what this law is going to do, and so if anybody wants to talk about it, I'd be happy to share. I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you. I have two things. First is administration requests a motion to establish a study session for Monday, November 28th, and this session will start upon conclusion of the regular board meeting. The topics will be a discussion on the future of our partnership with Richfield School District with respect to early childhood and lifelong learning programming.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of a study session regarding our partnership with Richfield in the early childhood division? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Great, thank you. Next is an announcement. Our school district and the city of Bloomington will partner to host a continuing education workshop for realtors. And this will be held on November 30th, that's a Wednesday, 9 a.m. to noon, here at the Educational Service Center. The workshop will highlight the great programming done by the city and the school district and the great things that are happening in our community. And this information should help realtors list and sell homes in Bloomington. They'll also have an opportunity to visit some of our schools. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
I just have one question. I just want to clarify, I think I have this correctly, but I just want to make sure that when we amended the agenda to put the resolution in regarding someone's resignation or retirement, that went into Part A, right?
Right.
Okay, just want to
Yep.
make sure we got it covered.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, this meeting's adjourned.